groves of Florida begins one of the most unusual stories of man's imagination and enterprise. Historians believed oranges were the golden apples of Greek mythology. Columbus brought the fruit from Spain to the New World on his second voyage of discovery. Florida sunshine and rich soil combined to create the world's greatest citrus industry. And now Florida orange juice is brought to the tables of the world in all its golden goodness. Truly, bottled sunshine.
Welcome to Florida, baby.
Introducing Dr. Narco Longo.
Florida oranges are the golden apples of mythology. On this channel, I have shown and will continue to show that Florida is the one and only physical Garden of Eden. We have the climate, trees, spring water, snakes, giant skeletons, Gulf Stream, and stone anchors to prove it. But when considering Eden, we must remember that this biblical paradise was directly inspired by the Greek legend of the Garden of Hesperides. In fact, the word paradise comes from Hesperides. The golden apple is a motif found across many different legends, not just the Greek. But when we examine the artistic depictions of this mythical fruit, we are met with what appear to be oranges, not apples. With this observation in mind, it should not surprise you that the Greek word for orange literally means golden apple. Additionally, in Greek botanical classification, citrus falls into the category of Hesperidoids, named directly for the Garden of Hesperides. This means a hell of a lot coming from a civilization that cultivated both the apple and citrus, and worshipped the sun. The Latin, Russian, German, Finnish, and Hebrew words for orange also bear the same etymological meaning, the latter two being of extreme importance, seeing as how they are the wellsprings of most languages on the planet. To this day, citrus falls under the category of Hesperidium. The fact that these apples are always regarded as golden is further proof that they are, in fact, Florida oranges. According to tropical astrology, upon which all alchemy, mysticism, and magic relies, both gold and oranges are ruled by the sun. Apples are not. In fact, all citrus is solar by nature, whereas the apple is ruled by Venus. The occult significance of the orange is further bolstered by the fact that it, quote, bears flowers and fruit at the same time, unlike other trees. The alchemical implications of such a fruit would not be lost on those initiated into the ancient mysteries. You may be asking, what does all this have to do with Florida? If citrus comes from Asia, it can't possibly be native to Florida, could it? Well, what if I told you that technically oranges are not native to anywhere? In fact, the conventional sweet orange is so domesticated that it does not occur in the wild. This means you should not expect to find oranges anywhere in the archaeological record where humans were not already present. But where does Florida fit in? Believe it or not, Columbus brought a variety of citrus species with him on the so-called very first voyage to the Americas. Some say it was the second, but nonetheless, the very first voyages. They planted the seeds and traded them with natives. 20 years later, Juan Ponce de Leon, on his quest for the fountain of youth, brought oranges and other citrus to Florida. Now, when subsequent Europeans arrived to Florida, they found the natives had already fully adopted citrus cultivation. Can you see where I'm going with this? Now that we know citrus came to Florida on the very first voyages, we should ask how it got to Europe. The answer, of course, is the Moors. In my videos, I have exposed the overwhelming likelihood that the Moors were either already present in the southern United States or retreated there after their expulsion from Spain following their defeat in the Granada War, conveniently timed just weeks before Columbus's fateful voyage. The Moors inherited citrus from their predecessors, the Phoenicians, who may have inherited it from a sunken western continent. Atlantis aside, the Greek, who were in possession of citrus over 2,000 years ago, were known to have secret colonies along the Florida coast during the period of English rule. Oranges may be from Florida, after all. A further evidence of such is the fact that Florida oranges are found to have a better taste than any others in the world. Regardless of their origin, the benefits of the orange and its juice are best summarized in the book Long Life in Florida by Hilton Hotima, which we will be reading from for the remainder of this video. Now enjoy. Chapter number 20. The Wonderful Orange by Dr. Leon A. Wilcox. It was Kipling who said, "If you can bear to hear the truth you've spoken, twisted by knaves to make a trap for fools, you'll be a man, my son." For 20 years I have been trying to put over a message about the wonderful orange and the benefits to be obtained from its use. I have heard the truth I have spoken twisted, pulled apart, distorted, and tortured till, had it not been for the great truth it is, there would not be enough of its virtues left to wad a popgun. A few years ago, a horse named Black Gold won the Great Kentucky Derby. It seems this horse was owned by a woman who had come into her fortune in the Oklahoma oil fields. She named her horse after the black oil that had made her wealthy. This black oil of Oklahoma never contained anywhere near the wealth that is to be found in the golden orange of California and Florida. In the orange there is health. In the black gold is self-indulgence, dissipation, sickness, and death. Till a very few years ago, it was the custom to carry home a dozen oranges with much the same mental attitude as was felt about a box of candy. They had been regarded as something nice to eat between meals or as a dessert. To think of them as a wonderful food perished the thought. The great majority of the medical profession have always knocked the citrus fruits, even in this day of enlightened opinions. From some of the world's most famous physicians and dietitians, it is not uncommon to hear one say their doctor told them not to eat fruits, as they contained much acid. Especially are people advised not to eat the citrus fruits, such as oranges, lemons, and grapefruits, on accounts of the acid. It is only within recent years that any of the medical practitioners suggested the use of these valuable foods. I regret to have to say that only a few today know how these fruits should be used. It depends entirely how these fruits are used as to whether they will give an acid reaction or not. Citrus fruits will always return an alkaline reaction when taken into the stomach by themselves. These fruits, in fact all juicy fruits, should never be eaten at the same meal with cooked or baked foods, nor should they ever be eaten with sugar. Cooked foods contain a certain amount of starch. When fruit juice comes in contact with starch in the stomach, the reaction is certain to be fermentation. The fermenting process is what generates acid. So you see, it is not the fruits that make the acid, it is the fruit combinations. A common sight in any restaurant in the morning, at breakfast, is people drinking a glass of orange juice or eating grapefruit, followed by a sweet roll, then washed down with a cup of coffee. This makes a wonderfully nice, acid breakfast. If continued long enough, will produce an acid stomach, neuritis, or some kind of rheumatic condition. Remember, all kinds of fresh fruits, melons, and berries should always be eaten alone, or with the fresh salad vegetables. William Diefenbach, MD of New York City, is the authority for the following about fruits. Fruit, instead of being a dessert, should, if properly evaluated, be classified as the most valuable of foods. Fruits contain little protein and fat, but are most valuable sources of mineral salts, cellulose, carbohydrates, and vitamins. The water content of fruits, with mineral content, keeps the blood in a state of alkalinity. Its alkaline elements, which are combined with the fruit acids, act as natural laxatives by promoting the secretory action of the liver, pancreas, and other secretory glands. Fruits furnish calcium, potassium, magnesium, phosphorus, iron, and manganese of a highly organized type, and are indispensable for the rebuilding of red blood platelets and corpuscles. Fruits are important sources of vitamins A, B, and C. Fruit sugar are a great source of vital energy and strength. Their combustion is readily accomplished and their basic elements readily neutralize CO2. Refined sugars, cane or beet, must first be converted by the pancreatic juices into dextrose before being available for combustion, and are therefore a strain on the economy if used to excess. Orange juice contains vitamins A, B, and C. The fresh citrus fruits, lemon, orange, tangerine, lime, and grapefruit, prevent scurvy due to vitamin C. King of fruits. After having given the question of fruits 20 years of study and research, not only by personal use but also by the direction and treatment of patients, I have arrived at the conclusion that the orange is the king of all fruits. Very few would believe the length of time an individual can live and perform the hardest kind of work, both mental and physical, using absolutely nothing but oranges for food. Another very important thing, a sick person living exclusively on an orange diet is not only getting all the nourishment that the body requires, but the orange will neutralize the acid in the system and provide a better medicine than any drug known to pharmacy. Finest distilled water. I, one time, heard a great physician and dietitian say, "Orange juice is water distilled in God's own distillery." How true this is. It is a food and a drink for the healthy and a medicine for the sick. For those who are seeking to regain their health, there is nothing that can be taken into the human system that will assist nature like this golden elixir of life. Millions of dollars are being spent every year advertising all kinds of foods. The old high-powered salesman has given way to the high-powered advertising counselor. These fellows must lay awake nights conjuring up good advertising copy telling us why we should eat Buncombe & Co.'s patent leather cheese for our health. Having many friends and relatives among the advertising fraternity, printers and allied lines of business, I am very much amused at times to hear remarks which indicate how easy it is for these high-pitched copywriters even to put it over on their own profession. Well, there is nothing like taking your own medicine. For one advertising man to believe what another fellow worker says about the product he boosts surely shows faith in the profession. However, I would suggest that in the future you do not place much dependence on what advertisers have to say about their food products. In the fruits and green uncooked vegetables you have food exactly as nature has prepared it, and there is positively nothing of any sort on the market that can equal these foods for good health. All the vitamin content is still intact. There has been no processing of any sort to take away the virtue from these things. All the food value is still there. The pioneers brought to us the beautiful California and Florida sunshine, and all its wonderful fruits. I am proud to be one of the pioneers who have been teaching people to use these products of the climate and sunshine discovered by some of our forefathers. Let us learn to utilize the golden nuggets of health found in fruit, so we can better enjoy the black gold found in our natural resources and industry. Florida oranges. Scientific investigation shows that tree-ripened oranges are a superior food. Patients have recovered from chronic ailments by living in the sunshine and eating only oranges. Dr. Bray reports the case of a patient who lived exclusively on oranges for 6 months and developed excellent health. In the days of our parents and grandparents, oranges were regarded as a luxury, and grapefruit was almost unknown. Few authorities then had much respect for the dietetic values of these delicious fruits. But now oranges and grapefruit are coming to be regarded as priceless additions to our daily fare. The discovery of vitamins and the dietitian's tardy recognition of the vital role that organic mineral salts play in the process of nutrition has revolutionized opinions as to the value of these fruits. Not only are they now accepted as essential foods for young and old, but the juices of either are being prescribed extensively as specifics for diseases, or as indispensable in child feeding, prenatal and postnatal feeding. Oranges, in particular, are a food fit for the gods. An exclusive orange diet can cure many ailments. It can rejuvenate the complexion, restore youthfulness and vitality, kill body odor, sweeten the breath, and often improve sight and hearing almost beyond belief. The high dietetic and health-giving properties of oranges lie in their rich content of organic mineral elements. They are rich in potassium, calcium, and phosphorus. They contain a fair amount of sulfur and magnesium, and they also incorporate sodium, iron, silicon, chlorine, and fluorine. In child feeding and prenatal feeding, oranges and their juices are extremely valuable. The high calcium content helps to keep the infant's blood alkaline and provides material for bones and teeth. Nursing mothers should consume oranges freely to enrich their milk. Prospective mothers should include lots of oranges in their dietary for the sake of their health, and to ensure a sufficiency of organic lime, so that nature will not need to sacrifice the mother's teeth in order to provide enough calcium for the bone of the babe. The best orange. It is not generally known that Florida oranges are the best in this country. They grow under such ideal climatic conditions that they contain in proper proportion practically all the vital elements needed by the body. But this is not true of oranges, fruits, and vegetables grown in dry climates under irrigation. They grow under artificial conditions and are deficient in some of the important minerals required for health. Florida is the great orange state. The Encyclopedia Britannica says, Florida is said to be the only section of the Union where the orange can be grown to any extent with success. There is no fear of winter killing south of Palatka. The quality of the fruit and the excellent condition in which it reaches the northern markets render this a most profitable crop. Palatka is about 60 miles south of the Georgia state line. It is more than 300 miles from Palatka to the southern end of Florida, and this area south of Palatka contains almost 30,000 square miles, or more than 15 million acres of orange land. Lake Placid in the scenic highlands is 160 miles south of Palatka. This is the Great Orange District of Florida, about which Kim's Guide to Florida says, probably the largest continuous citrus fruit garden in the world, contains 1/3 of the state's acreage of oranges, grapefruit, and tangerines. Highest point in the state, Iron Mountain, 324.9 feet above sea level.
From the tiny trees brought to America so long ago, have developed the abundance that today stretches to the horizon. Row upon row of carefully tended groves that flourish in this mild subtropic climate. Citrus in Florida is the state's major agricultural industry. Producing orange groves cover more than 480,000 acres. There are over 30 million bearing trees and 23 million young trees that will become productive within the next few years. Warm air rising from hundreds of natural lakes throughout the citrus-producing area gives the trees protection from occasional cold winds during the winter and furnishes water for irrigation during dry weather. Citrus trees begin to produce commercially at 5 to 7 years of age, and their productive life depends on the care given them. As long as they are properly fertilized, sprayed, and pruned, they'll produce for many years. There are still trees bearing in Florida that are over 100 years old.
I Lived 6 Months on Orange Juice by John W. Marshall. For years I had known the great food value of the orange, not its value as measured in calories, but as a rectifier of the chemistry of the blood, as a restorer of the proper alkalinity of the life stream. I had seen many people live 2 and 3 weeks, and even a month, and on occasion even 6 weeks, on an exclusive diet of the delicious fruit. I had seen people complaining of all sorts of diseases, afflicted with worn-out, poisoned, overfed, and overnourished bodies, restored to a remarkable degree of health and vitality through the exclusive use of the citric fruit for varied periods of time. But when Dr. Leon A. Wilcox, a leading osteopathic physician of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, informed me in an unassuming fashion that he had a patient who had lived on orange juice for 6 months, I was actually amazed. I certainly should not have believed the story from the lips of an ordinary man. but Dr. Wilcox is a man of high repute among the members of his profession and among his many patients and friends in Pittsburgh, where he has lived and practiced for a quarter of a century. Then, too, when he told me the story as I sat there in his office, he spoke with such confidence and candor that I never thought for a moment to doubt his word. The following day, I had the pleasure of seeing and speaking with the patient herself, a quiet little girl with big blue eyes and an oval face encased in a lovely white skin, into which, as I conversed with her, there came and went flushes of pink and red as she told me the remarkable story of her recovery from a condition of living death and her gradual evolution into a creature of living delight unto herself and to all whom she might meet. This is the story she told me on that November evening as we sat there in Dr. Wilcox's office. When I was a little girl, I was just about like the other girls. I had fair health most of the time, though I was visited by the usual so-called children's diseases. I suppose you had a cold occasionally, I interrupted. Of course, plenty of them, especially in the winter-time, was the reply. She continued, at about 14 I began to get fat. My parents, stocky German type, heralded this acquisition of weight as a sign of health. Of course I thought the same, as I did really feel quite well most of the time. However, I had a voracious appetite and ate not only prodigious quantities of the good staple foods such as bread, meat, and potatoes, but I ate great quantities of candies, ice cream, etc. Certainly the most iron-bound constitution must have given way under the load. As the time went on, I got fatter and fatter, and my complexion, once ruddy and beautiful, began to acquire a sallow, yellowish appearance. Blackheads and pimples became numerous. To rid myself of the latter, I tried various lotions, cold creams, beauty clays, etc. To restore the roses to my cheeks, I tried various highly perfumed toilet soaps and, of course, rouge and powder. When I did not succeed in eliminating the pimples and blackheads by the use of the skin lotions, and when beauty soaps failed to restore the roses to my cheeks, I used more and more rouge, lipstick, and powder. Of course, it never occurred to me that my voracious and unbridled appetite had anything to do with my complexion, though my weight was steadily increasing. Dark rings began to appear beneath my eyes. I began to have headaches, which as time went on became more frequent. At first I sought relief in aspirin tablets, which of course relieved my headaches, but I realized that my condition was growing worse, so I began to visit doctors, from whom I got pills and prescriptions and orders to have my teeth pulled and my tonsils removed, and various suggestions of equally stupid character. Of course I did not realize then that all these things were stupid, though it is true I kept both my tonsils and my teeth. If the doctors had been unanimous in their analyses of my case, and had given the same prescriptions, I should probably have followed all the advice given. But the prescriptions varied so much that it was impossible to follow them. My appetite began to wane. My tongue was heavily coated, especially when I got up in the morning, but I took appetizers and ate highly spiced foods so that I was able to eat in spite of my revolting stomach. My headaches increased and my pains extended to other parts of the body. My legs, my arms, and especially my back ached most of the time. As I was now employed with the Westinghouse Electric Company and wanted to be always on the job, I had to force myself to do my duties, force myself to get up in the morning, force myself into my clothes, in fact, force every move that I made. In the end, even eating became a burden to me. The only act I did not force was going to bed at night, but my sleep was never sound and dreamless. Instead, I rolled and tossed all night long, with the occasional lapses of consciousness. However, when I rode on the train and occasionally even at work, I drowsed off into a stupor, not only because of my suffering and my unsightly condition, but because I discovered that while other girls were in demand, I remained a wallflower. I stayed away from dances and social gatherings of young people. I became exceedingly morose and morbid, and more self-centered. Life had become such a burden to me that many times, in moments of great depression, I contemplated suicide, and only refrained because I lacked the courage. When doctors' medicines failed to work, the neighbors advised herb teas, mud bath packs, grandmother's psychic, etc. But these home remedies were no more effective than those prescribed by the doctors. Instead of getting better, I got worse. My heart, which had been for some time troubling me a great deal, at times thumped so rapidly that it seemed it would jump out of my throat. My breath became short. My pains increased. My flesh became soft and pudgy. My ankles became almost as large as my calves. I was a sight to behold. Only 1.5 inches over 5 feet tall, barefoot, and weighing 186 pounds. Here I was, only 18 years of age, as big as a baby elephant, and saturated with the poisonous wastes from the food I had been eating. As I was about to give up in despair, I heard of Dr. Wilcox, the man who cures people with oranges. So, without a great deal of hope, but with the feeling that regardless of whether or not he could benefit me, since my condition was so bad that he could not possibly make me worse, I went to him, and for the first time since I had begun doctoring, I was told the real cause of my trouble. I was told that neither my stomach, nor my heart, nor my undernourished, decaying teeth, but my diet was responsible for my trouble. After a thorough examination, the doctor said, "We'll just put you on orange juice for 10 days as a starter on the cleansing process." Of course, this seemed like a long time to do without what I called food. But I was desperate, so I said, "All right, I'll do anything. I might as well be dead as in my present condition." The results were surprising, not only to me, but even to Dr. Wilcox, who had witnessed so many people doing the same thing. While the first few days were a bit difficult, I began to experience immediate relief, and before the 10 days were up, I had lost all of my pains, and I have never felt a headache since. When the days were finished, I felt so much better that I decided upon the doctor's advice to try the same diet for 10 days more. This was not hard to do, for I felt no desire for other food. At the end of 20 days, I felt still better, and my fat was rapidly dropping away. So as I still had no desire for other food, I continued on the exclusive orange juice diet. So I went on from one 10-day period to another, and as the days passed into weeks, and the weeks into months, as my desire for other foods had not returned, as I had long ago said goodbye to my pains, as my fat was melting away, as my complexion clearing up, I continued my course. Life had taken on a new meaning. I had begun to really enjoy living. I no longer drowsed on every occasion when I relaxed, but when I went to bed, my sleep was sound and untroubled, in contrast to the spasmodic sleep that gave me no rest in the days when I was living in the old way. I became active and alert, full of vigor and vitality. Boys and girls alike began to desire my company, and the former especially became increasingly interested in my newfound charms. So I continued day after day and week after week until now 6 months have passed and I am, as you see, completely restored to health and life. And I want to tell you, it's really great to be alive. I feel like running and dancing and singing all the time. To see was to believe. I compared the pictures which she showed me of the overfed, overstuffed creature which she had been, with the living, breathing reality before me, and I knew that her story was true. You seem to have gone through this period of purging without pain. This is unusual. People, as a rule, suffer somewhat, especially at the outset of such a restrictive diet. Did you not at times suffer and feel morbid and discouraged, I asked. No, she replied. I improved from the start, and although the first few days were painful, I felt better each day. At about the middle of the period, I had a slight running at the nose. Dr. Wilcox called it a period of elimination, but this did not bother me. I kept on as usual with my work in the office at the Westinghouse Electric Company. Then you worked throughout the period of 6 months you were on the orange juice diet, I again interrogated. Yes, and I walked about a mile every day, and felt like walking more, but the doctor cautioned against it. You seem to have kept in pretty close touch with Dr. Wilcox throughout the period. Yes, I visited him every day. While he emphasized the fact that not he but the oranges were doing the work, he felt that without his guidance I might go wrong. I probably would have too, she added. What do you eat now? I asked. Raw foods, altogether, green vegetables, and a few nuts. This diet I enjoy much better than once I enjoyed the old conventional cooked diet, she added with a smile of conviction. And thus ended the story of the wonderful transformation wrought by the daily use of 10 golden drops of sunshine from Florida. May it be told again and again. May it be an inspiration to thousands of suffering human beings, that they may be tempted to partake freely of this golden fruit whose substance has imbibed so freely of the life-giving properties of the sun that even the color of its skin bespeaks the gold that lies within.
I knew somebody who went on some 1,008 days of only one fruit. This person went on orange. Only oranges for 1,008 days this lady ate. She was full of ailments when she started. She was a diabetic, high blood pressure, and I don't know, they told me a list of problems that she had, serious very thyroid issues, overweight. In 1,008 days, she came out like she was 20 years younger and full of vitality, all ailments gone totally. This is one person I am saying, please don't go on just oranges, we'll run short of oranges or at least move to Florida. Yes, fruit will make a wonderful difference, especially in today's world. It's very important because we value a human being in the work areas, I'm saying. We value a human being for their brain power, not their brawn power, unless you're on WW whatever nonsense, okay? So, for this, fruit will make a huge difference for sure. And ecologically, it's the most sensible thing to do. Between fruit and meat, for one person to survive, let's say that you have to survive on just meat, an approximate calculation is, we will need 15,000 liters of water to produce meat for one person for 1 year. If you go on fruit diet, we will need 300 liters of water. You should. All the rivers will flow once again.
Hello, welcome to another Raw Food Education video. My name is Dr. Rick Dina. So to summarize what we saw from our lab analysis, we saw that my 24-hour urine pH overall was neutral. Now, a few other things that I didn't mention previously. I also measured my urine pH each time I urinated, and what I found was that shortly after consuming the oranges, my urine pH was quite alkaline. It was about 8. Whereas if I hadn't consumed oranges for a while, my urine started to get a bit less alkaline. Now, first thing in the morning, my urine was actually acidic. And that's what we normally find, because our body is constantly generating acids. Our normal metabolic waste products are acidic in nature. So then when we consume alkalizing foods with minerals such as calcium and magnesium and potassium, that helps to offset the acidity, and it makes it easier for our body to maintain that 7.4 slight alkalinity in our bloodstream. So when we do that with diet, we don't strain our body's buffering mechanisms as much. During the time that I collected my 24 hours worth of urine, I consumed 18 oranges. Now, I was at a calorie deficit because those 18 oranges only add up to about 1,100 calories. So earlier today, like I mentioned, I was really involved in my research. And right now, I'm pretty darn hungry, and I'm really looking forward to having my salad tonight. Now, I don't think it's too much of a stretch to say, if I had consumed 1,500 or 1,800 or 2,000 calories worth of oranges, in other words, I met all of my calorie needs during this 24-hour collection period, it's pretty safe to say I would have gone more into the alkaline range. The oranges created alkalinity. Not eating as much created more acidity because there wasn't as much alkaline stuff coming in to buffer the normal metabolic waste products. So, bottom line here, is fruit acid forming? No, it's not. It's alkalizing. Even an acid fruit like oranges. It's acidic, directly, but metabolically, the effect on our body is that it's actually alkalizing. And in the last episode, I collected my urine for 24 hours so I could analyze the pH of it while I was eating only oranges. I consumed oranges for half a day, then started collecting my urine, and then over the next 24 hours, while I continued to consume only oranges, I got my 24-hour urine sample. And I wanted to combat a common myth out there, which I think I did a pretty good job of. I thought it would also be interesting to see what kind of nutrient profile I got only eating oranges. So what I did is I looked at a day's worth of oranges. So what I did is I took those 24 oranges that I ate the first day and did a nutrient profile. I looked at these things here as well as another set that we're going to look at in part 2. Now, I used the United States Department of Agriculture database. So to start out with, I did not consume the required or the recommended amount of calories. They say I should consume about 2,300 calories in a day, and I got 1,400 of oranges. That was a lot to eat, so nevertheless, that's what I ate that day. Now, I got plenty of carbohydrates according to them. Didn't quite make it in protein, although I did get 30 grams of protein in 1,400 calories worth of oranges. Fruit does contain protein. It's got 7% protein in oranges, and there was some fat in there. I got 5%. Now, fiber, they say you should have 38 grams a day, and most people don't achieve that. I got 73 grams a day just from those oranges. No sawdust, no fiber tablets, no wheat germ or bran or anything like that, just oranges. I got a lot of fiber. They didn't get a reading for sodium. For potassium, supposed to get 4,700, I got 5,200 just from the oranges. Magnesium, they say to get 420 milligrams, I got 290, so I didn't make it yet on magnesium. Calcium, this may surprise you. They say you need 1,000 milligrams of calcium. Women need 1,200 a day. So in any case, even with these higher standards than some other countries in the world, I got almost 1,200 milligrams of calcium from 1,400 calories worth of oranges. Isn't that cool? You may make the argument, as I've been pointing out, that I didn't meet my calorie needs for the day. And of course, if I met my calorie needs, I'd eat more oranges, and therefore I'd get more nutrients. Fruit has been a staple in my diet. In fact, the majority of my calories have come from fruit for over 25 years now. So here we go. Fruit is your friend. And one of the main reasons I'm bringing this up is because there are a lot of myths out there in the world in general, as well as within the raw food community.
Before we wrap up, you should know about citrus canker, a disease that led to the near total eradication of Florida's privately owned citrus trees. The effects of this disease, which pose no threat to humans, but have a negative impact on the appearance of commercial citrus, were used to justify the mandated removal of a majority of Florida's privately owned orange trees, despite being successfully defeated by more reasonable methods twice before. Florida enacted an overreaching policy that saw officers with assault rifles storming Floridians' homes between 1995 and 2005 to forcefully remove all potentially infectious citrus trees. But while mom and pop's trees were destroyed, the Florida citrus industry stayed almost entirely intact, leading many to believe that the canker scare was just an excuse to eradicate the competition posed by citrus planted on private property. Tyrants are not very fond of abundance for the common people. Floridians who once squeezed their own orange juice every morning would now have to buy what the grocery store was selling.
How about that? Wasn't that a juicy story?